Hey there. I was planning this week on making a video about lay investiture and exciting things like that, but instead, this happened. I'm trying to face it to you, so you're looking at me. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Great. Hey everybody. We're opening up a package that just came for me. It's pretty exciting.
You forgot the sides are still buckled up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Oh, get this one. I think that's all the sides I have to do because I have to get this.
No.
Oh, yes, those ones are down the middle, aren't they? So we'll have to get them here, I think.
What's in it?
We're going to see what's in it just a second.
I still have to go and finish the book.
Yes, well, are you getting the photos? Are you shooting the scene?
Yeah.
Are you showing? Okay.
Is it new magazine?
It's a book. Make a video of my book. This is my book. Am I in Great. Thank you, assistant. This is the book I wrote. I finally got my box of books. Yay! That's right. I got the copies of my book, the manuscripts of Leo the Great's letters, the transmission and reception of papal documents in late antiquity and the Middle Ages. Published by Brepols in the series Instrumenta Patristica et Medievalia. So, very excited about this book. Very excited to have my own physical copy of this beautiful object. And I would like to say it's wonderful to be published by a publisher like Brepols. There's the little ship on the spine. Brepols is one of those academic publishers who hasn't started cutting corners, from what I can tell. Well, looky here. Is that a stitched binding that I see? It is. It's a bit blurry for you, but it is. So they've stitched every quire. No perfect binding in sight. And watch this. Amazeballs. A book that just lies flat. Who wouldn't want to spend 110 euros on a book like this? The paper is high quality. The typesetting is really great. I mean, all of these things over which I have no control except for lining up a great publisher, producing good enough work for them to want to print it, producing work that fits in one of their series. And this series is, we say it's an ancillary series to what Brepols is most famous for, which is many of the standard critical editions of Latin patristic texts and a lot of Latin medieval texts, the Corpus Christianorum. They also have a number of Greek texts, but fewer Greek than Latin. They have a smaller series of Greek texts. So it's very exciting, though, therefore, that I am getting published by them with the hopes that someday this could be the groundwork for my own edition of Pope St. Leo the Great's letters. So, who is not excited about this new development in my life, the arrival of my book? So I thought maybe I'd take a moment or two and plug this book here on the YouTubes, where you might be able to, just at the click of a link in the description, go and order a copy for yourself. Ask your academic library nearby to order a copy for themselves. You know, that kind of thing. So, but let me tell you, why else might you want to buy my book? Well, there are two things. It's a really useful book, and it has a lot of other interesting things to say. So first of all, really useful. This is a category of book that means that it could be used as reference for a lot of the stuff that I put in it. A lot of the data that I gathered and synthesized in the production of this book can be found, and you can find it through two methods. One of which is the insane table of contents that, let's see. So here's the beginning of the table of contents. Here's some more table of contents. Some more table of contents. Some more table of contents. And the end of the table of contents. Now, you may say that's a bit crazy. If your book only has 7 chapters with an introduction, conclusion, appendix bibliography, and indices, why is your table of contents that many pages long? And the answer is because it's a detailed table of contents. So that you can, if you want to look up one of the many collections of canon law documents, or collections of Leo's letters, or collections of papal letters that I discuss in here, you can find it. Not only can you find it, you can choose to look up just the question of the manuscripts and skip all of the wider context that I tend to give to each collection and go straight to the heart of that matter. Or you can skip the manuscripts, whatever you like. You can skip ahead to manuscript relations, all the relationships amongst those manuscripts and between that collection and another collection, or amongst other collections. So that is there. And you say, well, but what if I really wanted to look up Collectio Diacensis? Isn't it a bit bulky? Well, that would be a bit bulky. It's a good thing I have an index for that. Good thing. Here we go. I have an index of collections. Collectio Canonum Dionysiana Collectio Diacensis. You can find it on page 91, 104, 105. 106 to 111 is its main entry. And so on and so forth. It comes up many times. So that's just really great to be able to do. And so I have an index, but say you're like, oh, but really, I want to look up Paris Lat 12097. Well, don't worry. Let's go to the index of manuscripts. So you go up, it's organized alphabetically by city, and then library within the city, and then shelf mark, which is the normal way of indexing manuscripts, in case you didn't know. So let's find Paris. Paris Lat, which is actually its Bibliothèque Nationale, which I have left out. So yes, Paris Lat 12097 is on page 26, 86, 94 note 11, 183, and 184 to 189. 184 to 189 is going to be the main discussion of that manuscript. So there you go. You can look up all sorts of manuscripts from all over Europe in this index. But then you're like, what I really want to know is, what does Dr. Hoskin have to say about St. Cyril of Alexandria? Well, you can find him on page 27, page 31, page 39, page 40, 41, 43, 44, 46, 56, and 57, 58, 59, 66, 114, 115, 116, 243, 262, 337, 429, 442, 461, and 462. So there we have it. And it is, thankfully, I figured out how to tell different people apart for you. So if you want to look up, let's say, Chrysaphius the Chamberlain, I have Chamberlain in parentheses next to his name. But if you want to look up Chrysaphius the Gallic Bishop, I have Gallic Bishop in parentheses next to his name. We have 3 different entries for people named Constantine. So that's also, worth looking into. And on and on and on and on it goes. So lots of usefulness here. You want to look up these people to see what their relationship is to the reception and transmission of the letters of Pope St. Leo the Great. They're in the index. If you want to look up the collection, a particular collection that contains any of Leo's letters, in the index. So that's useful. The book is arranged chronologically mostly, let me tell you that. The big manuscript part. And the big manuscript part, I must admit, for the average reader, may be the less interesting part of my book. But it's super important, let me tell you. So the bulk of the book, the big meaty bit, runs from chapter 2, which is all about editing Leo's letters, to the end of chapter 6. So let's look at that. Chapter 6 is about manuscripts that were put together after the Carolingians. So that's... Oh, wait, where'd chapter 2 go? Because on page 71. So there we go, page 71 to page 406. This is all discussions of solely just the questions of transmission and reception. And you may say, wow, golly, that's a lot of manuscripts. But not only is it a lot of manuscripts, it's a lot of tables, some of which are mega tables. Loves me some tables, I do. You may think to yourself, I don't care about those tables. You may not. And I tell you this right now, that's okay. But there are people who should care. And I want those tables there for those guys and ladies. Those ladies and gentlemen who care about the textual criticism and the arguments underlying, the evidence underlying the arguments, I should say, the arguments underlying the conclusions that I draw in the book. so they can see for themselves. And so I put huge tables discussing variants and differences between manuscripts. So that's pretty exciting. And so all of that is really cool, and I'm able to draw connections using all of these things between manuscripts within collections and then connections between different collections throughout the extraordinary span of the late antiquity and the Middle Ages. The manuscripts themselves running from the 500s to the 1500s. The latest one I saw was a 16th century paper manuscript in Wolfenbüttel, which is my favorite Baroque city. Now, most people don't have a favorite Baroque city. Most people aren't me. Also, they make Jägermeister there. I didn't know that until I'd left. So that is just some of the exciting things going on in this book as far as the manuscripts are concerned. There are over 300 of them and about 60 different letter collections. And now you're probably like, I feel like perhaps Dr. Hoskin has put the cart before the horse. So yes, indeed, perhaps I have, because I was excited about the usefulness aspect of this book. But what are these letter collections? What are these manuscripts? Who on earth is Pope St. Leo the Great? Well, good thing I'm making this video, because let me tell you a few things about that. First of all, Leo the Great was Bishop of Rome from 440 to 461. That's a good long time. That's one of the longest papacies in ancient history, because usually you become pope when you're over 60, and which means you're already older than the average person. So there you have that. Obviously, Leo did not become pope over 60. Probably closer to 40, which is how he's pope for so long. So he was pope for those times, and he did all sorts of amazing things. And you can read all about those things in chapter 1. Chapter 1, I talk about his papacy, and I talk about it using primarily through the lens of the letters. How do the letters reveal to us the history of the life and times of Pope Leo the Great? And so the thing for which he is most famous is the calling of the Council of Chalcedon in 451, which was a big church council to deal with some issues of Christology. I don't need to get into that here on this particular video. The resolution of the council was that Christ exists in two natures. One is fully human and one is fully divine, and they exist together in a single person, who is Jesus, without confusion, without separation, and so forth. And it's actually a really, really important document for the ongoing history of theology. Right now there's like a big resurgence of interest in Maximus the Confessor, a really important 7th century Greek theologian, and he is deeply rooted in the conciliar documents of Chalcedon. So Leo is a chief architect of that council that embraces his own theology of the natures of Christ. So that is like the thing he's most famous for. That's the reason why he's called Leo the Great. None of the other interesting things he did, like meeting Attila, or writing a lot of letters, or articulating for the first time a real theology of papal primacy, or what was the other one that was on the tip of my tongue? Being the first pope to publish a selection of his own sermons. Lots of great things he did. It's the theology of the Council of Chalcedon that initially is the cause of him being called Pope Leo the Great. And because of this, and because of the subsequent history of theology, about which you can read in this book, lots of Leo's letters survive because people are invested in the theology of Pope Leo the Great. And so that means that letters to members of the imperial court, letters to bishops of the East, letters to Leo from the same people, letters to monks in the East, letters to people who are acting as his agents, even if it's not technically his agentes and rebus, those people, these letters, they survive because they were important to later arguments about the theology. On the other hand, a lot of Leo's other letters to the West also survive because he had a lot of things to say about canon law. He's writing in a time when Western Roman imperial power is starting to collapse. There's a lot of instability. A lot of people are looking for reassurance, safety, strength, something like that. And so a lot of them are writing to Leo questions that maybe they don't need to ask, and thus drawing this connection, or facing new, unheard of circumstances. And so saying, what do we do? What do we do? Or the sudden influx of refugees from North Africa after the Vandals sweep through and conquer it, coming to the northern parts of the Mediterranean, to Western Europe, and that people being like, oh, there are all sorts of questions coming out of Africa that we don't know how to answer, and so they write to Leo, right? So lots of his letters about that survive. So canon law and theology both are really important in Leo's letters, and so Leo's letters are worth reading for the history of both theology and canon law. I talk about that in my book. And they get transmitted to us. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing you need to know. The autograph copy of something is that which is written by the original dude. We have no autograph copies of anything from any pope before Pope Hadrian I, who's one of Charlemagne's popes in the late 700s. And that is just a papyrus fragment. Popes were writing on papyrus, which is one of the reasons why we have this problem. And we have no complete register of papal letters in the original copy before Pope Gregory VII, 1073 to 1084. So, what this means is everybody else, all of their letters, are copies of copies of copies of copies. This is how ancient texts are transmitted, in case you were wondering. But these letters are gathered together by different people at different times in different collections, sometimes from a copy of a copy sent to the recipient, sometimes getting copies out of the papal archive however it existed at that point in history. Sometimes Leo himself will actually send copies of a letter that's originally to Bob to, I can't come up with any male names. I want to say Susie, but obviously if Susie's not a woman in the imperial court, he's not writing her letters. But he sends Caesarius a letter. Obviously not Caesarius of Arles because he's not born yet. Anyway, so he's sending letters, copies of his own letters to other people. And so this is all going on. And what happens is, since there's no register being published, no register survives for us either, then the textual criticism of the letters is a big interesting thing, because you're looking at the textual criticism. This is the study of the transmission of a text and how the different copyists might make different errors, and what is the relationship between all of the many handwritten copies. Because as anyone who has tried doing transcription knows, you make mistakes. So, all of these things going on. And so then I have found these collections that are the bulk of the book are, I have about 60 of them, I think, at this point, and over 300 manuscripts. Boom! It's a lot of manuscripts. And this is just ones that have at least a single complete letter of Leo's in them. There are other manuscripts that contain selections from Leo's letters, excerpted here and there for the purposes mostly of canon law, although some theological people like Peter Lombard, and mostly Peter Lombard, are doing this. And obviously the people who do commentaries on Lombard. So, all of this is going on. But the question that I feel like a book like mine, so here's where my book is exciting, is it's not just useful, it's interesting. Because the question that this kind of book doesn't always necessarily address is the question of why on earth do any of these people care? Why do we get these upsurges of manuscripts of Leo the Great at different periods in history? Why these letters? Why are particular letters being copied at different times? Why are particular collections being expanded or excerpted by different people? To what end? Why is all of this going on? And so this is a question I get into in my book, basically. Every chapter begins with an introductory section that tells you all about that period. So we're talking about the period of the earliest transmission before the Carolingians. What is going on then? The collapse of the Western Roman Empire, but then also the theological disputes involving the Emperor Justinian, as well as mostly that, right? So that's one thing. But then, on the other hand, and then the next one is Carolingian. So why do we have this huge upsurge in all manuscripts of all kinds in the Carolingian era? What makes the Carolingian Renaissance happen, and how does Leo fit into that? Boom, right? Next chapter is about after the Carolingians. So what's going on? And so really the next big peak is the 12th century Renaissance. So the 1100s sees another peak, and we start getting these manuscripts that are devoted solely to Leo start emerging in the 1100s. Some of them actually, I believe, one was born possibly born Clairvaux is a manuscript currently in Troyes. So all of a sudden it was born in Troyes, and then I realized no, born in Clairvaux. And yes, born in Clairvaux around the time of St. Bernard. And that is like all I'm really going to say now, because I don't like making videos too much over 20 minutes. There's so much to say in my book because it's like 500 pages long. I haven't really talked about the content, but why should you, reader, purchaser, viewer, why should you care about these manuscripts? Why should you care about Pope Leo the Great? Why should you care about the intellectual history of Europe? Well, I feel like if you've watched this video for 19 and a half minutes, you're either a member of my family or you already do. But maybe I'll get to that sort of thing in a future video. Until then, have yourself a good day.